Welcome to episode 4, season 1, the Hotel Balzaar. And children, this is chapter 10 through 12 and pages 61 through 82. And the idea, if I have not said this before, is to read these particular pages and chapters before you listen to the podcast. And one thing that I wanted to talk about is with books, there's not really a lot of good books. Parents and kids, there really isn't, especially for children. And I'm talking about novels, fiction novels. For this age group, we're talking basically second grade through, let's say, seventh grade. And my opinion about that is that I've read a lot of books. And I've always had this thought about every book. There's the beginning, middle, and end. And invariably, if you've got a great book, all three are fantastic. And so far in this journey with this book, everyone, the beginning was great, and we're smack in the middle now, and I'm really engaged. These two chapters really are good. The Countess, of course, now Jasper is making noise. I knew we wouldn't be able to get through this episode without Jasper making noise. Oh, Jasper. He's finally quiet now. We'll see if we can get through a whole episode without him. And I haven't introduced myself. I know I have, but other than being a teacher, I'm 64 years old. Teaching is my second career. We're going on year 19 now. And my wife and I have raised two children, 32 and 28. And both of them are married, and I have one grandchild. But everything that's wrong with my life is because of you know who, Jasper. Well, he's a year and a half, and I'm just being facetious. Children, students of mine know what that word means, but facetious means I'm just kidding. But he does drive me crazy. Back to the Hotel Balzaar. As we get into chapter 10, Marta wanted to tell her mother who she had seen walking in the snow, but she did not think that her mother would like it at all. Something very important was happening, something that her mother was too tired, too hopeless to understand. And again, just quick lesson, hopeless. You have letters that come at the end of a word that can change the meaning of the word. In this case, hopeless means without hope. Less is a suffix. And oh my goodness, what a line. Something that her mother was too tired, too hopeless to understand. Just breaks your heart. But clearly we can sense that Marta's not giving up. So she goes back to room 314, and the Countess begins to tell her another story. In a time long ago, in a convent in the hills far away from the city, there was a young man whom God spoke to. Excuse me, not a young man, a young nun. But what about the circus, said Marta. What about the walnuts with words inside them? This is a different story, said the Countess. You must be patient. So right away, we get a sense that there's this personality piece to Marta that is not accepting of things, not as sweet and kind as you would think, and as innocent. She pushes back at the Countess in this chapter. It's very interesting. Marta closed her eyes. She saw again her mother and her father and herself. In this particular story, she's wanting some answers. It's clear. They're walking together in the snow. Why did the Countess not tell that story? The story of a girl who finds her father, the story of a family together. When Marta opens her eyes, the Countess was looking at her. Not all stories are happy stories, said the old woman. Oh my goodness, life is not all sunshine and rainbows. Marta felt her face grow warm. I know that. So, said the Countess, how, you may ask, did God speak to the nun? So basically, Countess goes into telling the story about this nun who painted beautiful creations that were as if that God had spoken to her, and they were beautiful, and people came from far and wide to see them. We learned that the nun's name is Sister Mary Joseph. Before she became a nun, she had had a much prettier name, Annabelle. But the order, which is the priests that rule over or are in charge of the nuns, demanded that she change her name, so she had become Sister Mary Joseph. Marta thought this canvas that she had painted, and many of them are like the dream, my dream of my father returning. She leaned forward closer to the Countess. This story has become interesting to you, said the Countess. The light seems familiar. Yes, Marta. Please, tell me more. So she goes on to tell her that ultimately Mary Joseph continued painting, but then one day what ended up happening was that the easel with the brush in her hand, and she did not see any light at all. There was no messages coming from God with her painting. Instead, in these creations that she was now making, she saw battlefields. She saw men at war. She saw agony, and she thought, God has abandoned me. As the story is recounted, then she left. She left her home with the other nuns, and she ended up staying with a family on a farm. And the girl who had once considered to be a great artist weeded and baked and hoed. She slept in the barn and could see the sky, the stars through the hole in the roof. But she was grateful with this new home and their company nonetheless, even though it was not even close to her prior life. And then all of a sudden, at the end of chapter 10, the Countess fell silent. She sighed. That's it, said Marta, that's the end? And this is also interesting. The Countess literally goes right back at her. You are so concerned with how things end, said the Countess. It is wearisome, this obsession of yours. Don't you understand that nothing ever truly ends? I am so tired, so tired. That's the end of chapter 10. Nothing truly ends. Again, something to ponder, something to think about. Where is she coming from with this? Let me know your thoughts. If this could be positive, right? It could be negative, depending upon your point of view. And point of view, children, is how you look at something. A great example when you want to know what your point of view is, if you look at a puddle on the ground, well, ants may look at this puddle, the ant's point of view for this puddle could be that this puddle is an ocean, yet from an elephant's point of view, this puddle is just a drop of water. So point of view is how you perceive things, your opinion, your viewpoints. And, again, you can look at this as really some type of metaphor as to will she have an ending? Clearly, Marta's looking for some type of resolution to her sorrow with her father coming home. And she ultimately says, so, said Marta. She talks to the Countess in the beginning of chapter 11. If you will not let me ask about endings, maybe you will let me ask if there is more to the story. Ah, well, there is more. So the Countess goes on to say that this nun who has left the order is now, she's beautiful, and that a boy ends up coming from another farm and offers to marry her. And they do get married. And they enjoy their time together. And things are going great. And then, at the end of bottom of page 71, and then something ridiculous happened. One of God's jokes, if you will. The farmer's wife was in the barn. She stepped on a hoe hidden in the hay. The handle of the hoe came up and hit her in the head. And with this blow to her head, the visitations of life returned. The visitations of light returned. God returned. And the woman knew she must again paint, and so she left. She walked away. Just as she walked away from the convent, she walked away from the farm and her husband. She left. And that, my little ray of life, is the end, for now. How could she just walk away, said Marta. That is a terrible story. It doesn't promise anything. It doesn't even mean anything. What do you want it to mean, said the Countess. And what do you want it to promise? I was hoping, said Marta. You were hoping for what, my dear, said the Countess. Marta closed her eyes. She saw her dream, that her father would be returning. I was hoping, said Marta. She opened her eyes and looked at the Countess. I was hoping that you had something important to tell me. Something about your father, said the Countess. Yes, said Marta. I want to know where he is. I want to know if you will ever come back. I am telling you stories, said the Countess. You mean you don't know anything, said Marta. The Countess smiled a crooked smile. That crooked smile, that's meaning that she's not necessarily a good person. Oh, my goodness. The Countess smiled a crooked smile, and Marta felt a wave of disappointment wash over her. Come again tomorrow, said the Countess. There will be another story. That is all I can promise you. So many questions now. Number one, observations that Marta is a tough girl, right? The Countess, she's got a crooked smile purposely. Again, children, the author doesn't write a crooked smile if there's not something up with this Countess. Maybe she's not all sunshine and roses and the wonderful, great sweetness that you think. Is she somehow, some way not good for Marta? We shall see as we go into chapter 12. As we wrap up this episode into the last chapter, chapter 12, there's a couple great life lessons in here, and so much of what these fairy tales can help you with is getting through our lives, right? The ups and downs of daily life. And Marta comes back, and she's heavy-hearted. Who cared about nuns and paintings? What a pointless story that had been. Pointless, right? You got the suffix less there. It was nonsense, all of it. So quick lesson here, children. Nonsense. Quack, quack. My students know that quack, quack means you've got a prefix there. We have characters throughout our classroom, and they are intentionally there to help us teach something. In this case, nonsense. The letters non at the beginning of the word, the existing word sense, turns around the meaning of sense. If something makes sense, it's true, right? It is logical. Well, you have non in front of a word. The prefix non means the opposite, right? Or not. It's not making sense. It was nonsense. And those of us that are fans of the first book in this trilogy, The Puppets of Spellhorse, we heard nonsense being referenced a lot. It's nonsense coming and nonsense going. So a great line. It was nonsense, all of it. It's all lies, boring, pointless lies. Marta goes down to the front desk. Alphonse is there. He says, his eyes say, I see you, but you do not exist. And truly, Marta felt like in that moment that she did not exist. Great vocabulary word, power word, if you'd like. It was dispiriting to see how nothing had ever changed. Again, you've got dis, which is a prefix. Dispiriting, if something is spirited, it's good and loving, and dispiriting is quite the opposite. It is melancholy, depressing. So here she is, and of course, who plops down near her and onto her shoulder? But the parrots. Blitzkopf. He brings her. We find out at the end of this chapter that Blitzkopf is there to bring her back to room 314. Marta comes in. The Countess says, my little ray of light. She smiles. You've returned. Marta said nothing. She refused to meet the Countess' eyes. I see Blitzkopf was here to fetch you because you must choose a hat. So she literally wants to choose this hat, and she wants Marta to help her. I have decided that I will tell you a third story. And there are 7 stories. We find this out now in the book that she's going to tell Marta 7 stories, and this is, in fact, going forward, this will be the 3rd story. Marta ends up saying, what difference does it make how many stories there are and in what order they're told? They're pointless, your stories. They don't mean anything. Tisk. You should spend less time doubting, little Marta, and more time listening. Now, we will consider the hats. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, I don't know about this countess. Either she is definitely giving sage advice, which is kind of advice with wisdom that she has with her years, and that she is being kind and helpful, but she's clearly mysterious, right? And Marta is kind of doubting whether or not this is a good person. Another life lesson as we go forward here in this chapter. There are days, said the Countess, as she put on a hat that featured a yellow bird. She's trying to figure out what hat to have for today. When the soul can be rescued from despair by the right hat. Although some days, of course, the soul seems beyond rescue. And then there is nothing to do except be patient and wait for the light to return, with or without a hat upon your head. There are days, again, life lessons, and this is what makes some of these great books pertinent to our life. There's some days that are just not going to be good. There's other days that will be good. What will you do with those days, right? And sometimes all it takes is time to heal wounds that you think when you're perseverating over an issue or a problem. You know what? She is giving good advice here. But when you're perseverating and you can't get over an issue or a problem, don't worry. Time sometimes can heal all wounds. But you never know. Some days you just won't. It won't be your day. And later on, as the chapter ends, the Countess tossed her hat aside, and so she said, she smiled her crooked smile, "Which hat do you think will rescue us today?" "We are beyond rescue," thought Marta. Blitzkov stopped preening and let out a high screech. "Yes," said the Countess, "I will inform her. Blitzkov would have you know that when he was a general, he wore a very fine hat." "Blitzkov is nothing but a parrot," said Marta, "and he has never been anything but a parrot. And you said he knows Shakespeare, but I haven't heard him say a single word." The Countess gave Marta a long appraising look, which is a good look, looking at someone with a fine-tooth comb, figuratively speaking. The diamonds on her hat glittered in the gray light. And listen to this, children. It takes no courage at all to doubt, Marta. And we are not beyond rescue. We are never beyond rescue. I will tell you the 3rd story. That's the end of chapter 12. And talk about another life lesson. It's hard to decipher this, but when you dig into those 2 sentences, it takes no courage at all to doubt, Marta. Meaning, it's easy to criticize. It's easy to be mean. It's easy to look bad upon others, right? It's easy to doubt. But it's hard to look, she says, and we are not beyond rescue. Meaning, to be rescued, to think positively, to look at the bright side, right? That is tougher. But we can be rescued, and I'm inferring that she's saying if we have faith. And she is leading Marta down this path through these stories, clearly, and hopefully that, there will be a happy ending. Because what is life without a happy ending, right? So that's it. Wraps up our current episode here for Mr. O'Keefe's Book Club. Again, KEVMOK21@gmail.com to give me your thoughts, if you agree, disagree, anything, and we'll see you next time.